Welcome in everyone to Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. I'm Rabbi Eric Walker sitting in for Greg until he returns on a Monday. I'll be taking your calls at 205 941 1011. You can listen live at WXJCradio.com or watch the live stream on my personal Facebook page or Igniting a Nation's YouTube channel. Or you can download the HAPS app, HAPPS, and catch all of my in-person events every Monday night at First Baptist Tuscaloosa at 7 p.m., every Thursday at 7 p.m., and Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. at Mountain Chapel United Methodist Church at 2541 Rocky Ridge Road. Starting on June the 8th, I'll be starting up a new prophecy class at 7 p.m. at Mountain Chapel United Methodist Church on Rocky Ridge in Vestavia. All my classes are open to anyone, and all the classes and events are live streamed, so you can watch along from anywhere in the world. We'd love to meet you in person at any of these teaching events. You can always stay on top of everything going on by visiting ignitinganation.com or email me at rabbieric@ignitinganation.com. I encourage you to connect with me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the Igniting a Nation name. The phone lines are open. We'll be taking your calls at 205 941 1011. As I promised you, that our first half hour segment today would be with my good friend Peter Rosenberger. Let me welcome him in. Peter, welcome into Priority Talk Radio. Good to see you. Good to hear you. I usually see you, but now I get to talk to you over the air. Peter Rosenberger, Caregivers with Hope. Peter has had 35 plus years in the role of caregiver to his precious wife, Gracie. And I wanted to have him on as this is a critical issue in our day as COVID has complicated things and more aging population are facing caregiving challenges. Peter is an expert in the field with 35 years of personal experience, and I wanted to spend the first hour of today's show talking about caregiving. So, Peter, why don't you take us a little bit on your journey with Gracie and the events of the last 35 years? Well, that's extraordinary. I mean, you made it brief no matter how long it took you. You know, the journey I've been on with you for the last 4 years, and Gracie, and telling the story about Caregivers with Hope, and your ministry of using uh, collected parts from other people's prosthetics because they ongoing changes as they have to refit and remake parts. You have a ministry, Standing with Hope, that employs people to assemble and reuse these as a ministry and send them over to other nations. And Gracie has traveled with you across the world to be a part of that. And I think that that is extraordinary that you've been able to take something which would appear to be tragic and turn it into a blessing for others who are in a much more difficult position than even yourselves. You know, and that's something that I've admired about both you and Gracie, and you've touched my life in extraordinary ways because of your extraordinary faith. And it has not been an easy journey for you to settle in with some of the challenges, but you've been very transparent about that. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back on the other side, uh, we're going to talk about some of the things that most caregivers have in common that they struggle with, and some tips that you have both in your book on pitfalls about being a caregiver and your book, Hope for the Caregiver, and the CD that goes with it. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back on the other side with Peter Rosenberger at caregiverswithhope.com.
Power on. .com for registration information. That's mpcslions.com. Mount Pleasant Christian School in Blount County, Alabama, cultivating academic excellence with a biblical worldview.
Thanks to Country Dental Lab for this ad. When faith is up, fear is down. And when faith is down, fear is up. Proverbs 29:25, Solomon understood this seesaw principle of faith and fear. Listen to what he said. Fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe.
Teacher on Leading the Way, Dr. Michael Youssef.
Solomon is saying faith or trust in God is the trigger mechanism that activates God's blessings in your life. Truth will not become operative until we believe it. There's no use saying, well, I believe it, but have you acted upon it? Have you taken a risk of faith? Have you said, God, I trust you, and I'm going to do something to prove my trust in you?
Want to hear more poignant thoughts from Dr. Michael Youssef? Join him for his daily radio program, Leading the Way.
Leading the Way with Dr. Michael Youssef, 9 a.m. every weekday on WXJC.
Hey, this is Greg, and ever since the first time I visited Israel in 1999, I have encouraged others to also experience the land of the Bible for themselves. I'm wondering if you have ever dreamed of visiting the Holy Land and walking where Jesus walked. If so, then why don't you pray about touring Israel with me next spring, 2022. We will experience a 10-day pilgrimage that will include visiting biblical sites around the Sea of Galilee and actually taking an inspirational boat ride on the same waters that Jesus walked upon. We will also visit the holy sites in the city of Jerusalem, including Golgotha and the Garden Tomb. You'll also experience the Dead Sea and many significant Old Testament sites. The Bible will come alive to you like never before. Interested at all? Email me at greg@prioritytalkradio.com and I will share with you much more information about this trip of a lifetime. Again, email me, greg@prioritytalkradio.com for more information on traveling with me to the Holy Land.
Hey everyone, I'm John Irwin. You are listening to Greg Davis, Priority Talk.
Rabbi Eric Walker sitting in for Greg Davis here on Priority Talk with Greg Davis. We're taking your calls at 205-941-1011. We're talking with Peter Rosenberger, a career caregiver who for the last 35 years has been a caregiver to his wife Gracie, who is a double amputee below the knees and getting ready for a major back surgery to help straighten her back. And that's one that we've been praying about. We ask for your prayers for Peter and Gracie Rosenberger as they face this next challenge in the journey. If you have a question for Peter, If you're a caregiver, if you know a caregiver, if you've got some challenges anticipating the road to becoming a caregiver, give us a call here at 205 941 1011 and talk to the expert himself. He'll be with us for the next 10 minutes. Peter, welcome back.
But it's great to be back. And, I was thinking a lot of things that you and I talked about, and what we talked about in the last 4 years. What is the common issue that caregivers struggle with? And I think we've seen a taste of that in the COVID world, the isolation. And isolation is one of the most crippling things that we as caregivers deal with. In fact, we've never meant to be isolated as human beings, as creation. The first thing that God said that was not good, according to Milton, was that man was alone. That was the first thing that he said. That was before the fall. And I thought, what an interesting observation, that it was not good for man to be alone. And this COVID world has created so much isolation. But this is the plague and the plight of caregivers since people started taking care of somebody. Is that by definition of it, you're isolated away from the community. And so we try to speak to that and by pushing out with the show and everything else that we do is to penetrate into that and let people know that they're not alone. And that there are people that are traveling this road that we can learn from each other. I learn from my callers just as much as they learn from me, maybe more from my callers. There's such a community, and that's the whole point of our walk with Christ, that we're coming together in corporate times to meet with each other, to build each other up, to strengthen each other, to fortify each other so that we can go out and bear these burdens. And one of the other issues that a lot of caregivers struggle with, as you mentioned before the break, was the loss of identity. That we lose ourselves in someone else's story. You ask a caregiver, how are you doing? And you'll hear often stuff like, well, we just got home from the hospital, or she had a bad night, or he's not doing very well. And I stopped them. I always ask that question on my show when the callers call in. I stopped them and said, I ask how you are doing. And that's where the tears and the stammering start, because it's hard to speak in your own voice when you've lost yourself in this. But that's the whole message of what we're trying to do, is to help caregivers find that voice and speak with that, however timidly they do. It'll get stronger so that they can assert their own hearts and get on a path to healthiness. Healthy caregivers make better caregivers. I'm not doing Gracie a favor if I'm not in a healthy place emotionally, physically, fiscally, professionally, and spiritually. And so that's the overarching message that we have to the family caregiver.
It involves so much sacrifice. You've recently moved from Nashville, Tennessee to Montana as a radical change, but that was crafted to get Gracie in an environment where the air was drier and her arthritis and pain could be managed better by a climate that was not as humid. And that's something that...
You're in Alabama and getting ready to get to the summertime in Alabama. If there's one thing Alabamans know, it's humidity.
Exactly. And so that's the enemy of people who deal with that kind of pain. And there are sacrifices that have to be made, and support for the caregivers is something that is really something that's peripheral to the everyday life of the average person until they come face to face with a situation in their life. It comes on suddenly. In your case, you entered into it, but that's not the normal situation. The normal situation is you're married, you have kids, and then something occurs where life changes. And that life change is hard to transition from the life that was to the new life that you live. And your focus has always been on making sure the caregiver is in a good place so that they can provide good care. And there are tips in your book, tips in your radio show on American Family Radio every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Just look at what's the name?
You go to hopeforthecaregiver.com, and it'll tell you where it's broadcast. We're on a couple different networks now. And then the podcast, we also do the show. And we do try to speak into that. The other part of that, though, Eric, and this is where I feel like you've been so instrumental in this, is that it's not just equipping the caregiver, it's equipping the church and mental health providers and other medical providers, so that when the phone call comes to these people and they're caught flat, that there are people around them that can speak into that with clarity. And I'm trying to help educate people on the vocabulary of what it's like to even speak to a caregiver. And so it's something you and I have done for 4 years, and we have a pretty, I would say we got a pretty good library of things you and I have kicked around for 4 years, haven't we?
We sure have. I mean, we've covered so many topics, and it's been eye-opening for me. And one of the challenges for me when we first got together in 2017 was looking at myself and saying, could I do what Peter did? Could I go into a relationship with somebody who had an ongoing pressing need that was only going to advance? And did I have that kind of compassion? And did I have that kind of abiding love, the capacity for abiding love in those vows that say in sickness and in health, in the good times and the bad times? And so there was a lot of self-examination that I had to do. And in your transparency, and you talked about some of the struggles that you went through during some periods of time in the caregiving journey, that made me realize that it's not about perfection. It is about focusing on the ones you love and making sure that you are in a good frame of mind so that you are not reacting, but you are there to support and be an advocate and make sure that the one you love is being taken care of by the best possible caregiver. In Gracie's case, that's you, and then the team of doctors that you've assembled who have been working with her for many years. And it's an important, full concept. It's more than one piece. You've had to advocate with the insurance companies and dealing with medical bills in excess of $10 million and navigate that entire journey on behalf of Gracie, because she's navigating her own journey with disabilities.
Well, it is quite a journey. As you're saying these things, I'm sitting here in Montana, and I'm looking out at the Rockies. The peaks are covered with snow. It's a beautiful day here, and I see magnificence all around me. I mean, just pristine beauty. I mean, majesty on a level that is really hard for cameras to capture. And yet, Scripture says that all creation is groaning. So I know that what I'm looking in front of me is groaning. It's not perfection. It is groaning, but it's beautiful, but it's groaning, but it's beautiful, but it's groaning. And I realized that's my life. You know, that there is beauty everywhere around me, even while it's groaning, even while there is sorrow and there's loss and there's pain and suffering, and yet there's also exquisite beauty. And I think that is something that Grace and I both hold on to. Perfection is God's business. Excellence is ours. I heard that quote from Michael J. Fox. I always thought it was a really good quote. You know, that Salvador Dali says, have no fear of perfection because you ain't going to reach it. He didn't say ain't, but I'm from South Carolina, so I'll say it. You know, but it's one of those things that we realize that, you know, we strive to do these things, but knowing that we're not going to make it in perfection until He brings us to perfection. But we can still enjoy the perfecting of His work and the beauty of what's available to us now, the relationships and the heart-stirring moments that we have in this life. And that's something I hope my fellow caregivers will take a leap of faith and believe that it's available to them as well.
Well, Peter, we thank you. We're about to hit a hard break, but you can get in touch with Peter, follow him at hopeforthecaregiver.com, and look on that website and listen in to his show on American Family Radio, also his podcast, and get his books. They're filled with outstanding tips. He'll be back on with me in June when I'll be sitting in for Greg in June, and we're going to discuss grief and death, which is a natural part of life. On that program. But Peter, great to talk to you. Love to Gracie, and I'll talk with you in a few weeks.
Thank you very much, Eric.
God bless you. This is Rabbi Eric Walker sitting in for Greg Davis. Greg will be back on Monday. We're taking your calls at 205-941-1011.
A question regarding federal interference in the 2020 census results. This is YHN News. I'm Andrea Tice. The ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Republican James Comer, has now sent a letter to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. That letter has been signed by a dozen other House Republicans. It questions Raimondo on whether there was any political interference from the Biden administration in the final census numbers. The final numbers were used to determine the number of House representatives from each state. The Republicans say there are massive gaps in the final results compared to the projected results that showed right-leaning states gaining a House seat and left-leaning states losing one. Some states, like New York, saw a sudden jump in final numbers by almost 1 million compared to the projected numbers that were released a few months ago. Mysterious attacks in 2 U.S. cities are starting to look like directed energy weapons were used. These same mystery attacks occurred in American embassies overseas just a few years ago. The directed energy attacks are being reported now in Washington, D.C. and Miami. The attacks affected officials working within the Pentagon and CIA in both of those cities. A Pentagon spokesperson has briefed members of the House Armed Services Committee about the suspected attacks in a classified meeting. Florida's legislature is the latest state to pass more election integrity laws. The bill is now being sent to the governor's desk for a signature. It would add more restrictions to voting by mail and ballot harvesting, as well as enhance voter ID requirements. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis plans to sign the bill into law, saying that Florida remains a national leader in election security, integrity, and transparency. And in the state of California, the governor there is giving up on his 10-month effort to ban singing inside churches as part of his COVID-19 health measures. Governor Gavin Newsom was rebuked 5 different times by the U.S. Supreme Court for infringing on religious liberties. He's now reverting to strong recommendations for churches rather than a mandate. I'm Andrea Tice. You're listening to YHN News.
Do you know that revenue from gambling only adds about 1% to a state's budget? Yet the harm it does to families and communities can be devastating. Did you know that sex trafficking is commonplace in casinos? And the Alabama gambling bill will be adding multiple casinos across the state. Today, call and ask your Alabama House member to vote no on full-scale gambling SB 319. Paid for by Eagle Forum of Alabama, alabamaeagle.org.
Dinner is amazing, sweetie. Could you pass the Parmesan?
I don't see the Parmesan.
It's behind the mouse, sweetie.
The little one, honey? Or the large one with the scruffy tail?
It is time to call Cooks.
Yeah, probably so, honey.
You don't have to live with pests. Get proven protection from Cook's Pest Control. Call or go online for a free quote.
Cook's Pest Control.
Overnight tonight on this Friday night, we'll drop into the mid-50s, becoming clear. Now for Saturday, we'll top out in the lower 80s. Going to be a nice spring day. Look for plenty of sunshine as we begin May. Temperatures on Sunday near 80 by the afternoon. Look for mostly cloudy sky. Showers and thunderstorms returning to the state Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. Some of those could be strong. We'll need to watch radar trends rather carefully. On WVUA 23, Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott with your forecast on this Crawford Broadcasting Station.
Spring is here, and it makes it a great time to call Today's Family Dentistry, located downtown Coleman, directly behind the courthouse on Highway 31. Make your appointment to get your smile ready for spring. Today's Family Dentistry offers routine cleanings, fillings, root canals, crowns, and dentures. Call 256-739-3337 for Today's Family Dentistry with Dr. David Kim, where you can get a fresh start for spring by making your dental care appointment today. Today's Family Dentistry, 256-739-3337.
And now, back to Priority Talk with Greg Davis.
My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah. Yeah. My life be like, yeah. My life be like, times like these that make me say, Lord, if you see me, please come my way.
Welcome back into this edition of Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. I'm Rabbi Eric Walker, sitting in for Greg until he returns on Monday. I'll be taking your calls at 205-941-1011, and you can follow this live stream on my Facebook page, on my YouTube channel, and on the HAPS app, HAPPS. It's a great new app that streams out to all kinds of services, and we are using it extensively. The website for me is ignitinganation.com, and all of our events, all of our teachings are there in the Biblical Truth Library. There's over 1,000 hours of biblical teachings available to you at ignitinganation.com. We spent the first half hour talking with Peter Rosenberg, a very close friend of mine, been on my television program for the last 4.5 years. Peter was one of the first guests I had, and we built a great rapport, did many programs together, and connected outside of the program to really begin to understand how extensive this issue about caregiving is. And the statistics are staggering that there's approximately 43.5 million caregivers who provide unpaid care to an adult or child in just the last 12 months. Staggering. The new census came out at 331 million. Of that, 192 million are adults. And so when you think of the percentage of adults who are providing care, and care is defined, a caregiver, sometimes called an informal caregiver, is an unpaid individual. For example, a spouse, partner, family member, friend, or neighbor involved in assisting others with activities of daily living or medical tasks. Formal caregivers are paid caregivers providing care in one's home or in a care setting, daycare, residential facility, long-term care facility. And so these statistics generally refer to caregivers of adults. And I know that there are those in the listening audience who are actually caregivers to a family member, and it's become their life's work is to help their spouse through an illness that became debilitating, that made it so that they were no longer able to take care of themselves. And this is a compassion issue. This is something that you don't choose. No one would voluntarily choose to take on this. Is something that, in Peter's case, he had this devoted love for Gracie. They were in Belmont College together, both as music majors. He is a concert pianist, and she is a gospel singer with an extraordinary voice. And they just fell madly in love with each other and have recorded a number of CDs together, written music for caregivers, soothing music for caregivers that both of them have collaborated on. And they found that they could navigate this journey together. And there were many pitfalls. There were things that were unexpected. There were dealing with the frustration that Peter had, that he just was not capable of taking Gracie's pain away. And so she is in a perpetual state of pain. Some days it's worse than others, but every day she is in pain. And as a double amputee, she deals with the phantom pain of a lost limb, as well as the pain of a devastating traffic accident. But yet that happened at 17 years old. She went on to get her degree and to have somewhat of a career, singing in churches, Peter playing in churches, and them being very involved in the Nashville music scene and in their church. But many of you are facing either the challenge of caregiving and seeing an aging parent or an aging loved one deal with dementia or Alzheimer's, or the onset of a stroke, or other debilitating situation where you have had to change your life and build your life around another, which is a very biblical model. However, one which we don't really want to sign up for in advance. I think the preference test that you took in elementary school, that maybe you were someone who had the gift of compassion, and they said you should be a nurse. And nurses have that wonderful gift of compassion. But being a full-time caregiver to a loved one and knowing that death comes knocking is got to be something that's been very, very hard to navigate. I'd love to hear your stories and your experiences with being a caregiver, and also what has helped you, and maybe advice for someone else. The number here is 205-941-1011. And this is something that as we age, more and more of us will face. I'm blessed to have a 95-year-old mother who is perfectly capable of taking care of herself, plays golf, and is very active, but that's not always the case. And there's many who are put in that position to take care of a loved one. And can you do it with grace? Can you do it with joy? Is it a burden to you? Is there help that you need? And as Peter said, that the caregiver needs to be taken care of, as well as the one who is being taken care of. And if the caregiver is sick and the caregiver has problems with alcohol or drugs or other distractions, can they really provide the kind of quality care that their loved one needs? And your needs have to be met as well, that you cannot lose yourself. And that's why you need a relationship with the Lord, because that's where your identity is going to come from. That's where your comfort is going to come from, but also the comfort of your church community. And that's something that we should talk about, is the role of the church in helping caregivers, providing support for them, transportation assistance, food assistance, whatever the need is, having somebody check on them. We've become isolated in this COVID environment, and there's a lot of people who are now socially isolated, and their only connections are electronic. And that human touch, that human interaction is now been relegated to telemedicine and to Zoom calls, and people have not seen their doctors, or they put off tests and they don't have someone who can take them. And this is a compassion ministry that reaches out to other people. And I'd love to hear about your experiences in this area, or for that matter, anything you want to talk about. We're taking your calls at 205-941-1011. And as Greg and I have said before on the show, this isn't for us to just tell you and feed you information. It's to interact with you, to talk with you about things that are pressing in your life, questions you have, especially me of a rabbi who has a Old Testament biblical worldview into the New Testament, and as a New Testament believer, taking a look and examining the connection between the old and the new, and what's laying out in front of us in the world today, the changes that are taking place in America, the changes that are taking place in our medical system, our educational system. All these things are being impacted by change. And with so many aging adults, as the baby boomer generation enters their 70s, there are needs out there. And for many, they've faced the death of a spouse, and now they're by themselves and they need care. And where is the care going to come from? It may come from an agency, it may come from families distant, What if they don't have local family? Is the family going to be prone to relocate them from their home? Many people, as they get old, would rather be in their own home. They find more comfort in their own home. And so we want to be sensitive to the needs of the person we're caring for, but also sensitive to the needs of the caregiver so that they can be fulfilled. Hello, Joan. This is Rabbi Eric, and you're calling Priority Talk with Greg Davis. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you today?
I am very good. Thank you for calling in. What's on your mind?
I have been enjoying your broadcast today. I am a live-in caregiver for a 94-year-old man. I was the caregiver for my mother for 7.5 years. I have been a caregiver for a little lady who passed away at 89, and I was caregiver for a older gentleman who passed away at the age of 92. So this is not new to me. However, this gentleman has taken every bit of the joy and pleasure out of being a caregiver. When I first signed up for the job, his son and his daughter both told me that I could not stand to be around him 24/7. And so I do crafty things for myself. I get out. I chose to get out and cut his grass, which is about 2 acres of yard. I chose to do the bush hogging around his farm. I am the sole caregiver for him. I do have every other weekend off, and his daughter does come stay with him on those weekends. But like you were saying, I feel like I have lost myself for the last 4.5 years because he has taken the joy out of being a caregiver. And I always thought myself to be compassionate and giving and patient and caring and everything. But after over 4 years now, I'm losing it. But I don't know how to get back to who I am or who I should be as a caregiver. And I was wondering if you might have any advice on that area.
Well, I'm going to start with your spiritual life. Do you have a relationship with the Lord?
Oh, you better believe it.
All right, because that's
yes.
that's where our help comes from. And as Peter has said, is we just need to take our scared hand and put it in his scarred hand. That's really God has given you this assignment, and this is a mercy ministry. And as you are losing yourself because this person is robbing the joy of the Lord is your strength. It's not in this person. And he may be...
That is my quote every morning.
Right.
The joy of the Lord is my strength.
Well, and that's the path you have to keep going on, because your identity is not in this man's condition. It's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of the struggle that he's going through. So on those weekends that you have off, there should be things you should do for yourself that return you back to things that you love to do, that you feel that you've been robbed of in this new assignment. And don't allow him to rob you of it. You know, we don't repay evil for evil, and that would never be the case, but we are to bless those who curse us and pray for those who despitefully use us. And this is a unique opportunity for you to be not only a caregiver, but an intercessor on behalf of someone that sounds like they're having a hard time with whatever it is that they're struggling with. And personality-wise, it's had an impact. I'm sure that there is anger, outbursts. You're not treated well. You don't feel respected, and maybe he's not emotionally mentally or physically capable of doing any of those things, and maybe he never was. And maybe the assignment is to show him the love of Messiah, and maybe through your kindness and your compassion, he'll come to know the Messiah before he leaves this earth.
Well, I have the pleasure of saying last Friday night, as a matter of fact, a week ago today, I had been outside. I actually had just taken the garbage from the house to the dumpster, and I came back in, and he had fallen, and I sat down on the floor with him. And because when I came in, he was just extremely demanding to me and everything, and I sat down on the floor with him and talked to him about his salvation. And I did have a captive audience, if I may say so.
All right.
Because he could not get up on his own. But I sat down on the floor with him and talked to him about his salvation and his relationship with the Lord. And I told him that he needed to call out to Jesus and ask Jesus in his heart if that's what he wanted to do. And I told him, I said, because that's what I feel like my job is here. Because I continually ask Jesus myself, Lord, what is it that you're wanting me to learn? And I'm 70 years old myself. And but Friday night we sat on the floor together, and I truly don't think that it was just to get me off of his case. I honestly feel like after probably a 20-minute conversation about Jesus Christ and the fact that he had to call out to Jesus himself, that I could not do it for him, that he says he walked the aisle when he was 13 years old with 4 of his friends. And that is copycat religion. It's not calling out to Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior.
Right.
And after 20 minutes of sitting on the floor with him and me explaining to him the difference between what he did when he was 13 years old and what he needs to do now, he called out to Christ, and he point blank said, he says, I want Jesus. He says, I believe in Jesus, and I want him to be the center of my life. And I can say that I have seen a kinder, gentler Mr. Bill since that night. My girlfriend has actually told me, she says, I see a difference in you. So, maybe this is what we needed.
Well, it sounds exactly like what you needed, and it sounds like the answer for you to realize that your assignment was it took somebody who could persevere through 4 years of possible verbal abuse and a lot of demands to...
It's been very verbal abuse. And it's not just verbal abuse. He does things intentionally to make my work harder for him and stuff like that. It's just, I've never had to cope with anybody like this before.
Right.
And his daughter, when she comes every other weekend, she comes, she makes sure I feed him breakfast and leave him a lunch. So she comes about 4:30 on Saturday afternoon, and she leaves by 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, and that's how often she sees her dad. Her son has been with him maybe 6 times in 4 years because he doesn't want to deal with him.
Right.
And it's sad. It's truly a sad situation. But, I'm hoping that next weekend when I'm off, I hope his daughter sees a big change in him. And but I totally have lost myself and constantly thinking about what I can do for this man to help him be who he needs to be and what the Lord needs him to be. And I don't know. It's just really hard being a caregiver when you've got someone with this mindset, and I've already resigned myself not to ever do this again.
I understand.
And that's what he's done for me.
Right. But it sounds like you're at the crossroads, you're at the turning point, and if you follow through and you are now able to point out to him what's godly behavior and what's ungodly behavior, and he's receptive to it, that by you helping him see the right way, that you're going to find that whatever you pour out will be poured back into you tenfold. And I think you'll find yourself again in very short order and realize that this was an assignment that, although difficult, that you passed the test, that you finally came to the point where you brought him to faith. And now you've got to disciple him. Now you've got to speak into him and take the role, not only as caregiver, but to disciple him, to show him the error of his ways. And when he talks to you in a certain way, say to him, is that the tone of voice that Jesus uses when he talks to you? And if that's not the tone of voice that Jesus uses, please don't use that on me. And start showing him that love, and be the love, compassionate person that you are. And I think you'll find yourself again, because you've crossed over. You finally got to the point where you came to the end of yourself and the end of the circumstance. And that's when we all cry out to Jesus. And so God bless you for doing that, Joan. I know it feels like... I want
to tell you this one little thing.
Okay.
After last Friday night, when I got up Saturday morning, the song in my heart was, I have sunshine in my soul. And I sang that all day. And I know without a doubt, it's because that Mr. Bell actually accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior.
Well, the angels are rejoicing, and now you should rejoice and take yourself back and be the child of God that you are. And I think you'll find your fullness of joy will be restored to you, and you'll see a change in him. And that change in him is going to be a reflection of the change in you, that you were the one to lead him into a right relationship with God. And
I certainly hope so.
That's the greatest.
I do appreciate it, okay?
God bless you, Joan. Thank you.
Oh, he does every day.
All
he
right.
does every day, Rabbi.
All right. Thank you so much for the call. Hello, John. Well, John, you'll have to call back because we're about to go to a break. And I'm sorry, but I hit the button too many times.
These phones seem to be a bit glitchy as of late.
Yeah, somebody must have poured a little bit of molasses in it. This is the same phone we've been using for 15 years, and it still looks like it. There's shiny spots all over it, and there you go. He's probably calling back in. But a great call with Joan. And that's, you heard the frustration in her voice, and yet you heard the joy. And although she was saying she had lost herself, she didn't sound lost to me. It sounded like she had found her joy again in sharing Messiah with a man who is broken and filled with anger. It's frustrating to be somebody that needs constant care, and in order to have the compassion for being on the other side of it, not able to take care of yourself, requiring someone to help you with everything, is in many ways frustrating and dehumanizing to them. And it's not the kind of dignified life that they wanted to lead. It's not how they saw themselves. And so when we come to that situation, we have to have compassion as well. We're about to go to break, and I'm going to get to John right after break. You're on Priority Talk. Give us a call, 205-941-1011. We'll be right back.
The life-changing gospel in word and song. Alabama's gospel voice. WXJC FM. WXJC HD Coleman. WDJC HD2 Birmingham. And WXJC AM Birmingham.
A missing child alert now canceled. This is YHN News. I'm Andrea Tice. The Alabama Law Enforcement Agency is ending its alert for missing 3-year-old Kalon Bell of Pickens County. Aaliyah and the Gordo Police Department will update the details on this story later today. Feminine hygiene products could soon be available in all of Alabama schools. Scott Chambers explains.
On Thursday, the Alabama legislature advanced a bill to require public schools to provide menstrual products. The State House of Representatives voted 97-0 for the bill that would require public schools to make feminine hygiene products available to students. The bill's sponsor, Representative Rolanda Hollis of Birmingham, says period poverty affects every county in the state. The bill now moves to the Alabama Senate. For YHN News, I'm Scott Chambers.
The NFL Draft gives the Crimson Tide here in Alabama a tied record with Florida when it comes to first drafts. 6 of the University of Alabama football players were chosen in the first round. A total of 8 players were drafted into the NFL this past Thursday night. Wide receiver Jalen Waddle was the 6th pick in the draft and was chosen by the Miami Dolphins. The Denver Broncos went for cornerback Patrick Surtain in the 9th pick of the night, and the Philadelphia Eagles selected Heisman Trophy winner Devonta Smith after the franchise traded up 2 spots to number 10 in the first round. Smith will be headed to the Eagles and join former teammate Jalen Hurts. The Fairhope Arts and Crafts Festival is back on after a 2-year pause. The festival kicks off this Friday and runs through Sunday with artists setting up tents to sell their creations. This year, the Arts and Crafts event will feature only Alabama artists. For more Alabama stories, go to yellowhammernews.com. I'm Andrea Tice. You're listening to YHN News.
Hey, this is Mark Whitehead. I'm the director and founder of Birmingham-based ministry called Never Thirst. Never Thirst's mission is to advance the gospel through clean water worldwide. Today, it's reported over 663 million people still lack access to safe drinking water, and it's estimated that approximately 1,000 children die every single day from preventable waterborne diseases. At Never Thirst, we're working to change that reality in Africa and Asia. Since Never Thirst started back in 2008, we've been able to bring safe drinking water to over 400,000 people. We're working to meet both physical and spiritual needs. You can be a part from right here in Birmingham, Alabama by partnering with Never Thirst today. Please visit neverthirstwater.org to learn how you can be a part of changing lives around the world.
Gambling is a bad deal for Alabama. The rich and powerful gaming cartels will pour tens of millions of dollars in advertising, trying to convince us it'll be wonderful for our state. But did you know that they are exempt from truth in advertising laws? Yep, that's right, they are. Citizens are conned into thinking they can win money on games that are designed to make them lose. Today, call and ask your Alabama House member to vote no on full-scale gambling SB 319. Paid by Eagle Forum of Alabama. AlabamaEagle.org.
The views and opinions expressed throughout the day are those of the participant and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting Management or sponsors.
Overnight tonight on this Friday night, we'll drop into the mid-50s, becoming clear. Now for Saturday, we'll top out in the lower 80s. Going to be a nice spring day. Look for plenty of sunshine as we begin May. Temperatures on Sunday near 80 by the afternoon. Look for mostly cloudy sky. Showers and thunderstorms returning to the state Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. Some of those could be strong. We'll need to watch radar trends rather carefully. On WVUA 23, Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott with your forecast on this Crawford Broadcasting Station.
We stand, we rise, we give.
Priority Talk, sharing the message of Jesus Christ. Birmingham's only live Christian talk show. Davis. I am legend. The people and issues that matter.
Welcome back into hour number 2 of Priority Talk with Greg Davis. This is Rabbi Eric Walker sitting in for Greg. He'll be back in studio on Monday. I'm taking your calls at 205-941-1011. You can listen live at WXJCradio.com or watch the live stream on my personal Facebook page or Igniting a Nation's YouTube channel. And you can download the HAPS app, HAPPS app, and catch all of my in-person teachings wherever I am, 4 or 5 days a week. I have classes somewhere, teaching sometime, and all of that is live streamed over the HAPS app. And you can always get in touch with me at Rabbi Eric at ignitingnation.com. And for our lineup of events, visit ignitingnation.com. We're taking your calls at 205-941-1011. The first hour we talked about caregiving, and I think it's important that we continue in that dialogue. We've got John on the line with us. John, welcome to Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. This is Rabbi Eric.
Hey, Rabbi, this is your old buddy John from Beechwood.
Hey, Johnny, how are you?
Hey, man. Yeah, I was glad that y'all had this topic on. As you know, I'm a full-time caregiver, and I had no idea of this other ministry, and it sounds like it might be helpful to some people, and myself included. So I was glad y'all had that segment.
Well, thanks. You know, I was thinking of you and Denise, and you know how much I love her and you both, and the way you have helped her navigate the things that you've done to take care of her. And she's pretty independent, but she's also dependent, and she's dependent on you for a lot of her care. Wanting to be able to do more things, but physically unable to. And so you two have a beautiful relationship where you found that balance, but yet still your identity is caught up a lot as a caregiver. And it's can be kind of as Joan said, you kind of lose yourself in it, and you wonder who you are outside of being a caregiver. And so Peter, over the last 35 years, has kind of developed an attitude of you got to take some time for yourself, go fishing, go do something that you enjoy to make sure that you can put that smile on your face and you can face that next challenge as this condition advances. It's not static, and so you know, I know that the loss of her sister of the same disease was heartbreaking, and made the reality even more so that you face that as well. And I know that that weighs heavy on Denise's heart as well, and so that's the reality of caregiving, is that you hope that there's that miracle that takes place, and God, of course, is still in the miracle business. But when that miracle doesn't come and you become the hands and feet of Jesus in the life of another, that's a full-time ministry, and that's something that you have done, and done well. And you can tell it by Denise's countenance and her boldness and her confidence in herself. And that's because she has a trusted caregiver in you. And I noticed that for as many years as I was at Beechwood, that I saw that every time I saw the two of you and every time I saw Denise, was that her attitude and her boldness and her strength, a reflection of the security that she has, that you provide for her. And so,
well, I never have thought about it like that.
I want to encourage you in that area, because that's the only way you can tell if she's thriving, even in the difficult situations. It's because you're doing a good job.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I hadn't really given that much thought that way, but Yeah, we, we were dating back, when we were young and teenagers. And, she was, of course, the clumsiest person I'd ever been around, but we didn't realize that there was really something serious going on.
Right.
So, at some point, I kind of felt like the Lord spoke to me and just said, what are you going to do? Are you going to leave this thing alone, or are you going to take charge of it and get right in there with her and do it? So anyway, we wound up getting married knowing that it was going to be an advancing illness. But anyway, I have days when or sometimes now it's weeks, when I blame the Lord for doing that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or, other weeks I might be thankful for it. So it's kind of the ups and downs of caregiving, I guess.
Well, it is. And, the reason why you and Denise are together is because God trusted you with one of his special daughters. And always remember that God was in this, and God didn't cause this, but God provided her with the helper and the caregiver that was the kind of man that you are, and pair the two of you together, that you two would grow together spiritually, that your love for each other would be unbreakable, and that you made the commitment that you're going to be by her side through better and worse, and you have been a man of your word to do that. So, be of good cheer, because it's her countenance which is a reflection of your relationship together. And every time I see her, she is filled with joy, praising the Lord, and you help navigate that journey with her. And so, O good and faithful servant, in you I know that God is well pleased.
Well, you know me as being a man of behind the scenes type stuff, but in some way the COVID thing gave me a break.
I'm sure it did.
We were active in our church and everything, but at some times you get where the physical going and doing is very taxing on you, let's say. So, I'm no spring chicken anymore either, so I have struggled with getting out and going and all that stuff. So in a way, COVID gave me a little short break.
Right. Well, and for many people, they found out that there's delivery services and there's ways to get things done that we didn't think we could do before, and you've built the ramps and you've put in all the things at home that you need. You're handy like that, and you've taken care of giving her a comfortable environment where she's secure. And that's the most important thing for all women, is to feel secure. And especially somebody that has a disability, is to have somebody stable that they can count on, that when they call your name, you're going to be there to answer, and you're not going to be resentful of the situation. And if you start feeling that resentment, this is part of Peter's ministry, is if you start feeling that little bit of resentment, a little bit of, not again, or I thought I already took care of that and I've got to do it again, is to figure out a way to get somebody to come in, pick up the phone, call somebody and say, hey, could you come over and sit with Denise for just a couple hours, maybe a friend from church? I just need to get out of the house, and have a couple of phone numbers of people that you can call in that time that won't ask a lot of questions. That the deal is, if John calls, then we'll make ourselves available to answer. To go sit there, and you just say, "Honey, I'll be back in a couple hours. There's some things I've got to do, but so and so is going to be here, and enjoy your visit." And just head on out the door and go do what it is. If it's going down by the creek, or it's going for a walk in Walmart, or wherever it is, that's going to allow you to take a break from it, because it's nonstop. It's 24/7, as you know. That illness, disease continues to progress on a daily basis, and that's something that we just don't. We can't stop.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. That's I try to do that, of course. Maybe not so much knowing somebody I could just call off the cuff, but we do. I try to get out by myself and do things, and try to get her off by herself some.
Right.
Out and about, So, but don't let her go to the beauty salon, because she'll come back looking wild.
Well, maybe
what it'll be.
Yeah, maybe we'll send you to the booty shop and have you come back looking wild, and that'll change the whole paradigm.
Yeah, I don't know if they can do much for me or not, but anyway.
I understand.
Yeah, I was glad to hear y'all back on the radio and everything. Do you have a regular time with Greg now?
Yeah, I'm on every Wednesday with Greg, and then when he's out of town, most of the times I'll be sitting in for him when I can. But we're set up every Wednesday. It used to be every Friday, but now it's every Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
So
well, I admire you, because you are some more busy man. I mean, I can't imagine having all those different dates where you got to be off somewhere prepared.
Well, I'm creeping up on 70, and I'm going to keep on going as long as I can, and I'll keep adding as long as I can. And I've got a grandchild now in Florida, and so I've got to make a run down there every now and then. I try to get down there every 4 to 6 weeks. It's about 4 hours away, and but life has been good, and God has been very gracious to me.
Yes, sir. Well, I know the feeling about that.
Yes, sir. Well, God bless you, Johnny. Give my love to Denise, and tell her that she was supposed to call in.
Well, she told me you said that to her, but I beat her to the punch today. So
there you go. All right. Well, I love you both, and I hope to see you soon.
Okay, buddy. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. You're talking with Rabbi Eric Walker on Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. We're about to take a break. On the other side of break, I'm going to pick up a call with Ken. Ken, I'll be with you right after this break.
Hey parents, have you considered a Christian education for your children next school year that would also provide a rigorous academic program with high expectations? Mount Pleasant Christian School in Blount County provides a strong biblical worldview and philosophy of education, emphasizing the dignity of every individual as created in God's image. The school is a ministry of Mount Pleasant Baptist Church and a member of the Alabama Christian Education Association and the American Association of Christian Schools. Visit mpcslions.com for registration information. That's mpcslions.com. Mount Pleasant Christian School in Blount County, Alabama, cultivating academic excellence with a biblical worldview.
Thanks to Country Dental Lab for this ad.
What's the key to strengthening your marriage?
having greater positive influence on your kids, and making your home a place of refreshment, joy, and genuine harmony. Get the answer and find the keys to maintaining family unity this week as John MacArthur looks again at The Fulfilled Family, the all-time most in-demand series on Grace to You.
Grace to You with Dr. John MacArthur every weekday at noon on AM 850 and 101.1 WXJC.
How far back can you trace your ancestors? Well, this week on Through the Bible with Dr. J. Vernon McGee, we'll learn some of our ancestors can be clearly identified among the descendants of Noah. Others, we'll just have to guess. I'm Steve Schwetz, inviting you to hop aboard the Bible bus for our journey through the book of Genesis.
Through the Bible with Dr. J. Vernon McGee every weekday at 1 p.m. on 101.1 FM and AM 850 WXJC.
Hey, this is Greg, and ever since the first time I visited Israel in 1999, I have encouraged others to also experience the land of the Bible for themselves. I'm wondering if you have ever dreamed of visiting the Holy Land and walking where Jesus walked. If so, then why don't you pray about touring Israel with me next spring, 2022. We will experience a 10-day pilgrimage that will include visiting biblical sites around the Sea of Galilee and actually taking an inspirational boat ride on the same waters that Jesus walked upon. We will also visit the holy sites in the city of Jerusalem, including Golgotha and the Garden Tomb. You'll also experience the Dead Sea and many significant Old Testament sites. The Bible will come alive to you like never before. Interested at all? Email me at greg@prioritytalkradio.com and I will share with you much more information about this trip of a lifetime. Again, email me, greg@prioritytalkradio.com for more information on traveling with me to the Holy Land.
Hi, this is Lee Strobel. You're listening to Priority Talk with Greg Davis.
I feel the waves crashing on my feet. It's like I know where I need to be, but I can't figure out, just how much air I will need to breathe.
Welcome back into Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. I'm Rabbi Eric Walker sitting in for Greg until he returns on Monday. Taking your calls at 205-941-1011. In the first half hour, we were on with Peter Rosenberger at Caregivers with Hope, opening up the discussion about caregiving and how significant it is and how many millions of people are impacted by being a caregiver or being the recipient of caregiving. Quite important. We've got Ken holding. Ken?
Hello. Hey, Rabbi.
Hey, Ken, how are you?
Oh, good. Small world. John and Denise, several years ago, I was visiting a church, and I heard this voice. I was like, where have I heard that voice before? And it was Denise, and I heard her call in here. I'd love to hear her call back in here.
Yep, she's something, isn't she? That was Johnny, her husband. Of course, you know John and Denise. And you were just ordained, you and your bride, as deacons, and installed as deacons there at Beechwood. I was so proud of both of you. Of course, you made the trip to Israel with me, with your incredible son, who's now a man. He's grown so much and changed so much, but it was a wonderful trip where you played Goliath and he played David. And boy, when you dropped to the ground, the earth shook. And so that was, both Ido and I said we had never seen anybody take the part so seriously. But that when the dust came up, I mean, it came up in a cloud like this 9-foot giant had fallen down, and people were just astounded. It was a beautiful demonstration, and we've gotten a lot of laughs about it. We still talk about it.
Really? Oh, no. I was auditioning. No, I wasn't. I was going to ask you a question. Like in the Bible, besides the resurrection, what is your favorite story in the Bible?
Aside from the resurrection, what is my favorite story of the Bible? Wow. That is that's an interesting question. I still think that because I know the connection between Exodus chapter 12 and the last 4 days of Jesus' life, that combined picture of the blood of the Lamb and the redemption of Israel because of the sacrificed lamb, and Jesus walking that same path for those 4 days, interconnecting those two is really that picture of John calling out, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." And as a Jew, we had no way to have our sins taken away. And so that was the most profound picture that the Bible played for me. That was my salvation experience. And so it's the combination of that Lamb of God on Mount Moriah, the Lamb of God in Exodus chapter 12, and the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. That entire picture will always stick with me because that was what brought me to faith.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Mr. Teachings, I hope we get to hear you this summer live. David's driving me down the road right now, so I got to...
All right. Well, listen. Now that you're a deacon and you got the pastor's ear, tell him to get me up there on a Sunday morning and let me rock the house.
I've been mentioning it to my wife. I need to mention it to the pastor.
All right.
You have a good one. Thank you.
God bless you. All right. Roger.
Hello, Rabbi Walker. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Roger?
Oh, man. Well, that's an interesting question, too.
Well, that's always an interesting question. It's like opening up Pandora's box. You can never know what's going to pop out, whether or not it's going to be butterflies or a dollar bill.
Well, and you can answer it in a lot of ways. You can spin it. You can fabricate something, or you can... there's just so many... Or you can be realistic.
Well, it's like bubblegum shrimp. You have fried shrimp, and you've got steamed shrimp, and you've got boiled shrimp, and you've got, so see, that's Roger's life.
Yeah. Hey, I just tuned in not too long ago, but I think the subject was caretaking. Is that
yes,
the subject?
Caregiving, yes.
Yeah, caregiving. I mean, I was involved in caretaking with both my parents, and I was involved in seeing my brother go down with drug addiction and finally OD on drugs. I mean, look, the caretaking, I lived with my mother the last 10 years. And
right.
I finally had to get help, and I finally found some great ladies. It was trial and error to find good people, but she wanted to stay home. But anyway, I think I have post-traumatic shock syndrome from all that. But I mean, what can you say about caretaking? I won't even say any more about it, but what I wanted to throw in was that something that came to my mind is the places that I go nowadays in my life. One over in North Birmingham, a back way home, and then one over by the airport going somewhere else. I passed by an old Presbyterian church, which is now a mosque. And over by the airport, I passed by a Buddhism temple. That's weird, isn't it?
It is.
You used to never would have seen that.
There's a Sikh temple. Yeah, there's a Sikh temple now in town, and there's the two Islamic centers. Actually, they spent I think some $50 million building a mosque in Montgomery. I don't know if I have my facts straight on that, but I don't know if there's any Muslims living in Montgomery, but I think they're preparing for them. So we're seeing that pop up around the country in cities that don't have a large Muslim population, but yet somebody's making an investment in it, and we believe it's coming out of Saudi Arabia. We're about to hit a hard break. Roger, good to hear your voice again, my friend. I've missed you. And
Take care. No pun intended.
All right.
Take care.
All right. God bless. All right. About to take a short break, and we'll be wrapping it up on the other side with the last half hour of the show. We've been talking about caregiving, and if you want to keep talking about it, I'll keep talking about it. Give us a call, 205-941-1011.
United States to begin restricting travel from India. This is YGen News. I'm Elizabeth Kramer. The U.S. will prohibit travel from India starting on May the 4th, according to a White House press briefing on Friday, citing a devastating rise in COVID-19 cases in the country and the emergence of potentially dangerous variants of the coronavirus. The United States has already moved to send therapeutics, rapid virus testing, and oxygen to India, along with materials needed for the country to boost its domestic production of COVID-19 vaccines. Disneyland reopens to excited visitors on Friday, marking a dramatic turnaround in a state that was very overwhelmed with coronavirus cases just 4 months ago. Visitors cheered and screamed with happiness as California's world-famous theme park unlocked its gates after an unprecedented 13-month closure. For now, Disneyland is only allowing in-state visitors and is operating at limited capacity. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is suing the U.S. Department of Interior in an effort to see fireworks shoot over Mount Mushmore National Monument on Independence Day. The Republican governor successfully pushed last year for the return of the pyrotechnic display after a decade-long hiatus. The state's application to hold fireworks this year was denied by the National Park Service, which cited safety concerns and objections from local Native American tribes. A 240-pound sturgeon that could be more than 100 years old was caught last week in the Detroit River by a crew from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The fish was nearly 7 feet long. The catchers say that based on its girth and size, it's assumed to be a female, and that it has been roaming the waters for over 100 years. She was quickly released back into the river after being weighed and measured. I'm Elizabeth Kramer, and you're listening to YHN News. The Business Council of Alabama needs your help to keep Alabama open. Join us in opposition to recent public calls for a nationwide mandatory shutdown. Go to keepalabamaopen.com and sign up for updates and access signs, stickers, and more. Show your support for the state of Alabama's ability and right to manage its own affairs when it comes to public health and the well-being of our people. That's keepalabamaopen.com. Brought to you by the Business Council of Alabama.
Do you know that revenue from gambling only adds about 1% to a state's budget? Yet the harm it does to families and communities can be devastating. Did you know that sex trafficking is commonplace in casinos? And the Alabama gambling bill will be adding multiple casinos across the state. Today, call and ask your Alabama House member to vote no on full-scale gambling SB 319. Paid for by Eagle Forum of Alabama, alabamaeagle.org.
Overnight tonight on this Friday night, we'll drop into the mid-50s, becoming clear. Now for Saturday, we'll top out in the lower 80s. Going to be a nice spring day. Look for plenty of sunshine as we begin May. Temperatures on Sunday near 80 by the afternoon. Look for mostly cloudy sky. Showers and thunderstorms returning to the state Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. Some of those could be strong. We'll need to watch radar trends rather carefully. On WVUA 23, Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott with your forecast on this Crawford Broadcasting Station.
Spring is here, and it makes it a great time to call Today's Family Dentistry, located downtown Coleman, directly behind the courthouse on Highway 31. Make your appointment to get your smile ready for spring. Today's Family Dentistry offers routine cleanings, fillings, root canals, crowns, and dentures. Call 256-739-3337 for Today's Family Dentistry with Dr. David Kim, where you can get a fresh start for spring by making your dental care appointment today. Today's Family Dentistry, 256-739-3337.
And now, back to Priority Talk with Greg Davis.
My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah. My life be like times like these that make me say.
Welcome back into Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. This is Rabbi Eric Walker sitting in for Greg. He'll be back on Monday. We're taking your calls at 205-941-1011. We're about to wrap up the show today. We've got about 20 minutes left in this Friday edition, and we spent the first hour and a half talking about caregiving, and I'd like to continue in that conversation with you because I think it's something that impacts a lot of people, and a lot of people don't have somebody to talk to about it. If there's somebody in our listening audience that is dealing with a caregiving situation or has questions about it, there's lots of resources that I have in these last 4.5 years of having a television broadcast that we broadcast 3 hours live every day. Peter Rosenberger was on with me every month for the last 4.5 years, us talking about caregiving, and we could talk about it for hours and hours and days because it affects in total some 65 million Americans. 20% of the population of the United States is involved in some degree of caregiving. And there's not a lot of preparation for it. You don't go into your marriage, you don't go into your parenting with the attitude that you're going to have to learn how to take care of someone else. You have a baby, you learn about caregiving from that, but then the baby learns to walk, talk, and feed themselves, and it moves into upbringing as opposed to caregiving. And, you know, if you ask somebody what they would define how they'd like their life to end, they always say that they want to end their life with dignity. They want to live out their life with dignity, meaning they want to be able to take care of themselves. They want to be able to feed themselves. They don't want somebody changing their clothes for them. They want to be able to take care of themselves. But with heart disease, with strokes, with genetic illness and disorder, with traffic accidents, on-the-job accidents, people find themselves in a position where they need someone to take care of them. And there's a lot of help that's needed psychologically in order for people to deal with that. But then there's that side, like our call from Joan, who is a caregiver, who found herself being so caught up in the circumstances of the person she was giving care to that she kind of lost her identity. But when she shared the gospel with them, it seems like that spark was reignited, not just in him, but in her. And I talk to a lot of people, and I can tell you when somebody has lost themselves, they don't sound as encouraged and as upbeat as Joan did. So I think she's going to find that our prayer should be, Lord, let there be change, but let it begin with me. That part of her change began when she shared the gospel with this curmudgeon elderly man that she's been taking care of for the last 4 years that had been draining the life out of her. But she found her hope and her comfort and was able to share that. And I think that's a strong message for all of us who are navigating challenges in our life. You know, there's seasons of pruning, and God prunes to make room for new growth. If the vine is not pruned for 7 years, it stops bearing fruit. And so it's a part of a growth process that there has to be pruning in our lives, that if we're bearing fruit, God wants us to bear more fruit. And it's painful. Pruning feels to the bush or to the tree the same thing as chopping it down. It doesn't know the difference. We can't really tell the difference of the pain or the troubles that we're going through or the trials that we're going through are discipline or are they pruning. And there's a simple test for that. If you are going through a difficult situation and it has to do with sin, that's discipline. But if you're going through a situation and there's just nothing that you can look at that you have changed, you haven't picked up any of those bad habits, you haven't backslidden, you haven't taken on the identity of the world, then God is preparing you for a new assignment. And in preparing you for that, He will trim away people in your life. He'll trim away habits in your life. He'll trim away certain attachments to things that you're no longer interested in so that He can make a way for you to pass through the season and accept the new assignment. And the Word of God tells us if we are faithful with the little things, God will make us master over much. Just imagine being trusted with the care of someone you love. Peter Rosenberger, 35 years by the side of his double amputee wife, who has been there for her through over 80 surgeries that he's been involved in, major surgeries, and they are preparing for the largest surgery she's ever had, and that is to open up her spine and insert rods because she has been bent over because of her prosthetics. Extended time on prosthetics is going to have a direct impact on your back. And so her back is now permanently curved, and it is causing her a great deal of pain. She can't sit upright, so they're going to go in there and insert rods to straighten her back. And they will require regular adjustments and tightening to slowly but surely straighten her back up so that she can be more functional and in less pain. But in order for her to get into less pain, she has to go through more pain. And that is something that Peter will tell you is one of his biggest challenges. Is he looks at his wife, who's in a constant state of pain, and he cannot take that pain away from her. And that is it was one of the frustrations he had to deal with. And one of the biggest challenges that he had to overcome was that as much as he could go to God and ask for the pain to be gone, as much as he could lay hands on her and pray over her, that the physical situation was such that it was going to be a constant struggle with pain. And so for the many years that she was on the opioids and all of the medications that we know that can mess with your mind, that can form addictions, she's been able to get off of all of that and find new therapies and work with doctors to find a way where she can still sit behind a microphone and sing with the voice of an angel. She was on my program on Monday, and that was the last segment that he and I will do together on Revealing the Truth, and she sang for me. We've waited 4 years. The program is much earlier where they are in Montana, and she doesn't get up that early. So she made it a point of getting up that early and fixing her hair and putting on her makeup just so that she'd come on and thank me for the years that I'd spent with Peter and talking about Gracie and talking to Gracie, not being able to see her. But that was the first time that we had met face to face, was on camera. And she is just filled with the joy of the Lord. And that is what has sustained them for all these years of their marriage. And now they're out in Montana, and there are moose in their front yard. And he sends me pictures all the time of the dog, their big dog, running with the moose, and just having. One day there'll be 8 inches of snow, and the next day it'll be melted and green, and the streams are running. And they found great joy in a small cabin on a family piece of property in Montana. And it takes them hours. They're 2 hours outside of Billings in order to even go see a doctor, but they have made that choice, that it's a quality of life choice. And that's a decision that many people have to make, is the quality of life and what it's going to take. And if you are not equipped to be a caregiver, then you have a challenge in front of you to find the right kind of caregivers. Like Roger said, it took time to find the right people, and there are many agencies out there, and there's many services that will vet those agencies for you, and there are many websites out there for caregivers, a lot of resources out there. And like everything on the internet, you can trust some, you can't trust them all. But if you can know that somebody like a Peter Rosenberger, who has made it his ministry to serve caregivers, and the website again is caregiverswithhope.com, that you can communicate with him, and you can call into his radio show and his podcast, and he'll answer your questions. And he's very responsive, and he has a heart for the caregiver. And he has been with me for, like I said, I believe we recorded some 50-some episodes of the show that you can find on the Igniting Nation YouTube channel, just under caregiving with Peter Rosenberger. And so we navigate in that 4.5 years whole lot of transparency and many of the challenges that face caregivers today. We're taking your calls at 205-941-1011. We're about to go to break. And on the other side of break, we'll just have a few minutes to take your last calls for the day and for the week. And I want to thank you for tuning in to Priority Talk with Greg Davis. For those who are watching us on the HAPS app, looking at the numbers there, there's 32 I want to give a shout out to on the HAPS app, and you're from all over the world. I've gotten messages from Kenya Kisi, from British Columbia, from Corpus Christi, Texas, and we thank you for tuning in to Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back on the other side.
Hey, this is Greg, and ever since the first time I visited Israel in 1999, I have encouraged others to also experience the land of the Bible for themselves. I'm wondering if you have ever dreamed of visiting the Holy Land and walking where Jesus walked. If so, then why don't you pray about touring Israel with me next spring, 2022. We will experience a 10-day pilgrimage that will include visiting biblical sites around the Sea of Galilee and actually taking an inspirational boat ride on the same waters that Jesus walked upon. We will also visit the holy sites in the city of Jerusalem, including Golgotha and the Garden Tomb. You'll also experience the Dead Sea and many significant Old Testament sites. The Bible will come alive to you like never before. Interested at all? Email me at greg@prioritytalkradio.com, and I will share with you much more information about this trip of a lifetime. Again, email me, greg@prioritytalkradio.com, for more information on traveling with me to the Holy Land.
It is not wrong to feel depressed sometimes, but when it becomes wrong is when you live in discouragement for too long.
Dr. Michael Youssef.
It becomes wrong when you get to enjoy discouragement. It becomes wrong when you continuously keep on wearing the garment of discouragement. That's when it is wrong.
Make sure to tune in this week to Leading the Way. Leading the Way with Dr. Michael Youssef, every weekday morning at 9 on AM 850 and 101.1 WXJC.
This week on Truth for Life, we're wrapping up our series titled Fix Our Eyes on Jesus. The final chapter in Hebrews will challenge us to reach out to strangers, view disgrace as a privilege, and fulfill our Christian duty. That's this week on Truth for Life with Alistair Begg.
Every weekday at 12:30 p.m. on 101.1 FM and AM 850 WXJC.
Hi, this is Kevin Sorbos, and you lucky people are listening to Greg Davis on Priority Talk.
Welcome back in, everybody, to the last about 10 minutes we have on Priority Talk Radio with Greg Davis. I'm Rabbi Eric Walker, sitting in for Greg until he'll be back in studio on Monday with a full roster of great guests, lineup of topics to talk with you about. Today we wound up talking about caregiving for the full 2 hours, and it is an important subject and one that as the church begins to return is something that they need to get involved in, and you should be able to have that list, like I was telling Johnny, that be one of those people that offers up to a couple or a family that has somebody who is in a caregiving position to spell them for a couple of hours and let them get out of the house and kind of get refreshed and renewed and look after them the same way you would want them to look after you. Our phone lines are open at 205-941-1011, and we've got a few minutes left for you to call in and talk about anything you want to talk about. Don't forget, visit ignitinganation.com. That is my ministry, and it has a series of events. Now, I'll be on hiatus as we are taking down the Igniting a Nation Broadcasting Network on May the 19th. Will be our final day of broadcast, and I'll be adding classes to my weekly class roster, and I'm at First Baptist Tuscaloosa on Monday nights. teaching the book of Exodus at Mountain Chapel United Methodist Church starting June the 8th for a prophecy class. And this will be a full-blown prophecy class, not just the prophecy scriptures, but actually a course on how to study prophecy, why to study prophecy, the significance of prophecy. And it is a full-blown course, and that's at 7 p.m. and all are welcome, as well as Sunday mornings at 9:30. If you don't have anywhere to go, come and hear teaching on the book of Deuteronomy as we're wrapping up that study there, and every Thursday night at Mountain Chapel for continuation of the book of Exodus. Ed.
Greetings. I just want to say shalom and ask for your prayers because I'm still recovering from trying to take care of my mother toward the end of her life. And it was complicated with sibling problems and getting on, having different ideas on how to help mom. That's one factor involved in caretaking that people might not anticipate. And one thing I never would have anticipated in trying to honor my mom's wish to live at the family home till she died, that, we could not ultimately do that because the dementia got so complicated by sundowner syndrome. And I was battling my own personal pre-existing, I've learned to call them comorbidities lately, and that, I found I was anemic, but I was still able to get mom 3 squares a day. And because when I got back home, I realized mom needed more help than I think anybody in our family had realized. But she got progressively sicker. Then she ended up at a memory care center, and that complicated things. And I can't always communicate when you're trying to communicate with people in that situation. And then with the advent of COVID in 2020, you couldn't go, even if you were able to go visit your loved one. So my mom ended up ultimately dying in a hospital, and she was asymptomatic for COVID, but they had pretty much started letting asymptomatic people stay at the place instead of what they had promised to do is not to allow that to happen. And eventually mom did get COVID, but I wouldn't say that's listed as the cause of death, but there were other complicating factors. We don't have enough time to go into it. I don't know if I could do it without breaking up or getting real angry, because I waffle between sadness and anger over the whole situation. And one little kicker in the whole situation was it was actually cheaper to have mom at a memory care center, which ain't cheap, than to have in-home care to just help me help mom. And during days gone by, you might have extended family come in and help someone. But the bottom line is I found that God gave me strength to do more than I ever thought I could do, which compared to what other people have done, I'm sure is not much. But the one thing I learned, it wasn't about me. It was about me showing unconditional love to my mom, because she's the one that showed so much to me, especially during my prodigal son days. She was always there with unconditional love. And so it was my turn to show unconditional love to her. And God gave me some grace to do that. I wish I'd had more grace to deal with my brother and sister better than I did. I fell short from the glory of God in sinning and with some of the situations that were involved, which didn't help the situation with mom. So, I'm very human and broken about this subject, but I really would hope that there would be Christian ministries to help people in those situations that maybe don't have the money to buy all the extra help that they might need.
Well, that's what we're hoping for, and that's what Peter and I are trying to do, is bring some focus to the churches to have programs to be able to take retired people who came out of nursing and retired people who have come out of that environment and have them render some assistance as a program of the church, and to be able to have that opportunity to minister to those who are ministering to a loved one, and even if it's just on an interim basis, to give the caregiver a break. We've seen caregivers get so worn down that they become the patient, and now you have two people in need of care because the caregiver has worn themselves out and they've lost themselves in this process, and they haven't taken the time to be a healthy caregiver, and that's caused even more problems. So,
well, see, my problem was I was not healthy to start with myself, so we were both kind of shut-ins, needing extra help just to get groceries and stuff. Now I'm still a shut-in. Only difference is I did get out once in March, but apparently my immune system was so complicated or compromised that I managed to contact COVID in March of 2018. Now I'm battling a persistent but mild case. I can't say that it's asymptomatic, but it's still in the stage where it's not high fever, so staying treated like the flu. The only difference is usually when my herbal approach to flu would go away once you got the herbs in action, it'd go away fairly quickly, even if the symptoms were more intense for a brief period of time. This has been more just continually debilitating, and I don't think we fully understand what COVID does. I don't know that we can even properly gauge how serious it is because it's been so politicized that we really don't know what the truth of it is. And I think we still need some Christian scientists to get involved and really tell us what's what in this area. I have a good Jewish friend who's a scientist, and he helps keep me posted. And I can only say that I wish the government was telling us the truth about it, but I really don't know. But be that as it may, there are people out there that maybe have unusual cases, because I think mine's to be so. It's mild, but it's persistently mild. Maybe it's just it's an open question: who's more stubborn, me or the virus? But I'm fighting it, and I'm trusting God's grace to get me through this. But at the same point in time, nevertheless, I'm still somewhat of a shut-in and need caretakers myself. So that's the debilitating situation that I'm in. But I do know people that do care and have helped me, and I'm very appreciative of that. And I don't know how much they know that I'm grateful of it. I probably can't do enough to show that. But all I can say is that there are people going on out there that are hurting that you may not ever know about. And I didn't even realize my mother was in the situation that she was in until I had to go back home for a while. And then I realized I was needed there to be a caretaker for Mom. And all I can say is I think I've been spite of the dementia. I think she finally realized that I loved her. And that was a small victory, because we had needed a lot of reconciliation for the stuff in my history. But I think I think the problem is she did live long enough in nursing home when I would talk to her on the phone. She got to the point where did she even know me? And so that can be a stressor in and of itself. I can't talk anymore. God bless you.
God bless you, Roger. And we've got people praying for you, and we appreciate you. And we've been talking for a lot of years. And Roger's been a regular caller, both here and on the Michael Hart Show. And we've developed a friendship. And so we thank you. I want to thank all of you for hanging in with me while Greg was out. He'll be back on Monday taking your calls. And I wish all of you every blessing that God has to offer, that he would pour out an avalanche of blessings in your life. Dylan, I want to thank you for just